come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I can see immediately that I'm going to have trouble with the bill of the cap hitting the stupid mic stand. I can see that already. And I wanted to wear this hat because when I get to the end of the show, I'll tell you why. And for the people that are watching right now, you'll get it. You'll understand. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, less than 2 miles from the Bill Mill, that way. The capital of the state of California, the locus of evil on the entire West Coast and perhaps even the entire United States of America. I would submit, maybe even the planet? You got a belly up to the bar? We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Kelly is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lit to my left, your right. And what that means is... Oops. Let's adjust it so you can see it. There we go. That's better. What that means is you can listen on shrmedia.com right now, quick like a bunny, or you can watch the show, count them, 2 places, on the SHR Media Facebook page and on the SHR Media YouTube channel, which we have gotten back. Woohoo! We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversations. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the drinks are not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Okay, so there I was. I was at the BZ area in the Sierra Nevada mountains earlier today, putting together the show. And this happens to be, if I go over to the right tab now, this happens to be a 35-tab show, which tells you that there's either a lot of audio cuts, or it's a really complicated show, or there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Well, it's all of that. So there I was, with everything solved, and I've got my little cut sheet right here because there's so much going on that I have a little cut sheet that I go by, and I had that all designed and written out, and then, of course, all sorts of crap happens, and it doesn't happen while I'm still in a position where I can move things around and recraft the show somewhat at leisure. No, right now it's about 8:05 on the far left coast Pacific time. It's about 11:05 on the far right coast Eastern time, and it's 17:32 and 175.72325 seconds in Bolivian time. And so I find out almost at the last second, about 15 minutes before the show, that there are 2 or 3 new articles, situations, and specifically an audio cut that's come to my attention. And especially after 2 of the events that I was made aware of, after I brought my blood pressure down from 210 over 190, because I'm going to have some choice words to say for a particular police agency very shortly. And unfortunately, no, they're not going to be good things to say. I'll get to that. But in any event, I had to move the show around, and I don't want to be Donald Downer So I'm going to start the show as I customarily try to do. There are some good things. I try to point out the good things that occur during the week, the past couple of days and whatnot. And customarily, I like to start out the show with...
It's time for happy stories and good times.
And there are some happy stories. There are some unfortunate stories. We'll get to them. They can wait. Oh, and I may as well throw this out, too. Kurt Schlichter. I'm going to be reading Kurt Schlichter's newest article today from townhall.com. And the headline says it all. The title of the article is Every Word Liberals Say About Guns is a Lie. And so I think you have a fairly decent idea what that is going to be about. But first, in the meantime, all the leftists, especially in California, they are in fact themselves. The tops of their heads are exploding when Trump... Oh, well, I shouldn't stop it at California. All across left land, wherever lefties may reside, they're going crazy, throwing camshaft, having PSH, which is pants-shitting hysteria, because the Trump admin wants to put one question on the census. It's a question about citizenship for the 2020 census. And so, of course, what happens? California decides that it's going to sue. So California, this past Monday, promised to sue the Trump administration over its decision to ask the 2020 census respondents if they are citizens of the United States. Well, if you're actually interested in finding out who is in the United States, then that would be a perfectly logical question to ask, would it not? Stop. Wait a minute. It was a perfectly logical question to ask during the Clinton during the Clinton presidency. Now, all of a sudden, it's a bad question to ask. So Xavier Becerra said filing suit against the Trump administration over the decision to add citizenship question on the 2020 census, including the question, is not just a bad idea, says Xavier Becerra, who cannot defend the state of California by himself. No, they have to. The state of California decided that they didn't trust Xavier Becerra sufficiently, so they subcontracted the ability of the state of California to defend itself to Eric Holder, and they paid him an assload, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to represent the state of California with issues just like this regarding the sanctuary state, illegals, and various policies of that nature. They didn't trust Xavier Becerra so much. And now Xavier Becerra, in his own estimation, says that's illegal. That's funny. I didn't hear leftists saying that during President Clinton's presidency, and I didn't hear that being said during Bush's presidency. Well, you would have heard it, however, said during Hillary's presidency, and she's not president. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, a happy story, and so is adding that particular question. The second happy story tonight is since the Parkland shootings, this really is a sensational thing. Since the Parkland shootings, donations to the NRA have tripled. Is BZ a member of the the NRA? And the answer is yes. BZ is, in fact, a member of the NRA. Is BZ an oath keeper? Because I keep my oath, the one I swore when I was a law enforcement officer. Is BZ an oath keeper and will keep his oath and will swear to the Constitution and will uphold the Bill of Rights and the Constitution? The answer is yes. BZ is an oath keeper. And he is a sheepdog because even though I have retired after 41 years in law enforcement, there are still jobs to do, and it's becoming more readily apparent day by day, week by week, and month by month. Donations to the National Rifle Association's Political Victory Fund more than tripled in February, the same month that the mass school shooting in Parkland, Florida, renewed the national gun control debate and sparked fierce backlash against the gun rights organization. Reports from the Federal Election Commission showed that donations to the NRA's Political Victory Fund tripled from $248,000 in January to more than $779,000 in February. Over $750,000. And that's CNN reporting that as well. Further, the nonpartisan Center for Responsive Politics, which tracks political spending, tracked itemized contributions before and after the February 14th shooting and found that the NRA received twice as much money from nearly 5 times as many donors in the 7 days after the shooting than it did the 7 days prior. So stop and ask yourself, why would that be? And the answer is, okay, there I go, putting my tinfoil hat and applying it evenly all across the cranius, because I'm a tinfoil hat wearer. And Lord knows leftists aren't talking about gun confiscation. BZ, what a nutter you are. But my guess would be that the people that renewed their membership to the NRA, or they went for their first membership, or they decided that they were going to contribute just for the farking hell of it, I bet they had those 2 letters in mind, G and C. As far as I'm concerned, that's a good story, too. That's a happy story. Here's an actual, real happy story, and oddly enough, it happens to include a firearm as well. This is from the Daily Caller, and the title is, Homeowner Shoots and Kills Convicted Felon During Break-In. A homeowner in Nashville, Tennessee, shot and killed a convicted felon who broke into his home and attacked him and his wife on Wednesday night. Police say Brent Bishop, 43, was away from his home when 2 men entered the dwelling and struck his wife in the face. Bishop arrived home shortly thereafter, noticed the rear door was open, before being struck on the head himself. The robbers demanded Bishop open his gun safe so that they could steal 3 rifles and a pistol before leaving. After the robbers left, Bishop grabbed a pistol from another room in his house. Oh, darn, shucky darn, the robbers didn't think about that. And headed outside to find his wife, who had fled at some point during the attack. Stop. By the way, anybody that's watched the new movie Death Wish by Bruce Willis and the piece of furniture that's very convenient in that movie, I'm making direct reference to that. If you haven't seen Death Wish by Bruce Willis, I find it vastly entertaining. Bruce Willis may in fact be back, though he's a terrible conservative, and Hollywood blacklisted him for a long time. Now, with luck, he's coming back. When Bishop made it outside, he again encountered the robbers and fatally shot one of them. The other robber dropped the stolen firearms and fled the scene. The deceased robber was identified as convicted felon Terry Adams, Jr., 27. Adams was arrested last July on charges of felony meth possession for resale and unlawful gun possession by a convicted felon. Now you may say to yourself, now why was it necessary for the evil bishop to shoot at these poor creatures who were just looking to liberate some firearms because clearly they had some defense, some self-defense issues themselves? And why wouldn't you want to share inherently your firearms in the first place? Because that's the true loving thing to do, after all. Is it not? Oh, of course it is. Bishop suffered a fractured skull during the attack, and the other robber remains at large. Here's also just a bit of icing on the cake. The Bishop residence was also burglarized previously on February 6th when a large TV was stolen from their house. Adams is a suspect in that one as well. I have another one. And again, this is like dripping with schadenfreude. And I'm reading these for a couple of reasons. Number one, they are in fact happy stories. And number two, by doing this, I'm noticing that my blood pressure is in fact coming down I'm mellowing out. Literally, after I found some of this information and I read some of the things that came across my phone from people that I speak to, I was shaking when I read the information that I'm going to reveal to you in a few minutes about something local that's been going on here in Sacramento. This I find delicious as well. This is from PJ Media. I don't really read this all that much, but I just happen to stumble across it. Okay. Chef butchers deer leg in front of animal rights activists at Toronto restaurant. Well, it's a restaurant. What do they expect him to do? Animal rights activists were in for a grisly surprise over the weekend when protesters in front of a popular Toronto restaurant were treated to a live demonstration on how to properly butcher the hind quarter of a deer. I would love to have seen that. Chef Michael Hunter, perfect name, thank you, is co-owner of Antler. Okay, maybe the name that should be a clue. Antler. Do you think carnivores are involved in that, perhaps? I'd kind of tend to think so. A restaurant that serves, this is a quote, local, seasonal, and wild foods that are native to Canada, such as bison, boar, rabbit, duck, and deer. When vegan protesters returned to his restaurant for the fourth time in recent days with signs bearing messages like, animals are not ours to use. No, they're not ours to use. Well, we can't use them, but they're also ours to eat. Animals are tasty. Let's see. Killing and eating animals is horrifying. And the massive word in block letters, murder. Hunter decided to conduct a little protest of his own. So what he did was a Toronto-based animal rights activist filmed and gave running commentary as the chef went about his work on the other side of a giant picture window. Imagine that. Picture this. To taunt the activists, he's brought the leg of a recently murdered deer. The activist, Len Goldberg, whined plaintively. This is in the article. I'm not making this up. Whined plaintively as fellow protesters held a sign under the meat-cutting display that read, murder. He noted that Hunter was butchering the animal on a table meant for diners. Don't even know if this is legal for him to be doing this, Goldberg fretted. I don't know what he thinks this will achieve. At this point, a couple of police officers arrived and went into the restaurant. A video that has since been deleted shows them speaking to Hunter inside the restaurant with smiles on their faces as he continues to prepare the meat. According to Blog TO, Hunter packed up his tools and meat after about a minute, and both he and the police officers walked away smiling. I'm not sure if the police were telling the owner to stop for trying to anger the protesters or for ethical or health and safety violations, Goldberg told Blog TO. I just think this is very disturbing. In a post on Facebook that has since been deleted, event organizer Marnie Jill Ugar wrote that she felt Hunter had been taunting the group. Okay, if I had a producer, I'd have a producer who at that point would have at this point when I said taunting the group. Okay, but I don't have a producer. It's just me, and that's all there was. So that was a fairly enjoyable story, and I have one more. I can't really call it a happy story, but I find that it's kind of in keeping with what's been happening, and it involves Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels. By the way, you can go to any number of porn sites and actually see her at work. Get it? At work. Well, this was due to apparently an alleged affair that occurred between Donald Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, and Stormy Daniels, she of the massive inflated pecs, shall we say, in 2007 between consenting adults and let's see, Anderson Cooper had an interview with her on Sunday, and he went into all kinds of salacious detail with regard to this that made him seem a lot damn creepy, if you ask me. The comparison was made between himself and Jerry Springer on a bad day. And essentially it turned out to be pretty much of a nothing burger, to the point where Whoopi Goldberg on The View, even she happened to say, did I miss something? It seems like there really wasn't much there. And it's because there wasn't much there. In this headline, Stormy Daniels' attempt to speed up the trial with Donald Trump. Oh no, how sad. That gets denied, according to court documents obtained by The Blast. Daniels' motion for expedited jury trial and for limited expedited discovery was denied. Her attorney, Michael Avenatti, tweeted about the denial, saying, "Here's an order from the court denying our motion as premature on procedural grounds. We will refile the motion as soon as blah, 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 wah, 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 wah." It goes like this. Didn't give a fuck in 2016. How many more fucks could I possibly coalesce to give to proffer in 2018? And the reply, as you might suspect, is, no more. Not really. No, not going to go there because it's not really worth it. So those are the best things that I can find out. And as I indicate, oh, by the way, welcome to Mike in chat. Good to see you here. Welcome to Simone in chat. Good to see you here as well. So great. Maybe we'll have some more folks in chat. I would ask you again that when you chat, because we're in YouTube, YouTube has a chat room. Please come over to shrmedia.com. Facebook has a chat room when you're watching live. Please come over to shrmedia.com because I only have two hands and I have to do all these other things. I since found out, let me back up a little bit. I got about 5 more minutes till the end of the first half hour, the first segment. Unless you've been living in a bubble, I'm sure you're probably aware that the Sacramento Police Department responded to a call of a man looking in windows, possibly with a pry bar, and possibly committing a burglary in a residential area. When Sac PD responded, there was a helicopter above, and the helicopter directed the officers towards a particular backyard. In that, they found that there was a man. This was at night, by the way, in a residential neighborhood. And they discovered a man, and they told him to put his hands up. They thought that he had something in his hands. One of the 2 officers who were there and were responding, one white officer, one black officer. Not that it means a hell of a lot, but really, these days, it does. I'm sad to say. And one officer yelled, "Gun." They shot the man, Stephon Clark. He is deceased. And following that, the demonstrations and protests began. And this was almost but not quite about a week ago. Black Lives Matter showed up, and on 3 distinct and separate nights, the protesters shut down I-5, which is a major north-south thoroughfare in the state of California, which goes up all the way to Canada and down to Mexico. And it's a favored route for drug runners because, after all, it's got an assload of lanes and you can drive really fast on it. So the protesters decided that they were going to shut down I-5 and also shut down the ability of people to go to the Kings basketball games, the Sacramento Kings events, which also has its stadium downtown. After having said that, now, Stephon Clark, who is passed away, he is the deceased man, who is black, a deceased young black man, had his funeral today, and his brother... Oh, let's see. Let me back up a little bit. The protesters and his brother also decided that it would be an excellent idea to go to the City of Sacramento City Hall chambers and act like fools in front of Darrell Steinberg, who is the mayor, to the point where they had to shut down any kind of a meeting because the folks who were present were not interested in listening whatsoever. And, of course, these days, can you expect anything less or more? The answer is obviously no. The funeral was today, and then some folks sent me some information. I still have contacts from a lot of the local people who may or may not be in law enforcement around here. When I get back, because I only have about, let's see, I've got about 4 more minutes to the break, and I don't think I have time to play it now, but I will play it at the end of the break. Don Lemon of CNN happened to invite the brother of Stephon Clark. I can't think of his name, and it really is not pertinent to me. Don Lemon of CNN invited the brother of Stephon Clark on, and what resulted was one of the most bizarre interviews you'll ever hear. I had it on good information that at the funeral, you should have, this is in reference to the brother, you should have seen him at the funeral. He was high as fuck. If you, and I'll give you the information when we come back, if you want to look at this video, because I'm going to play the video. The audio is every bit as good. It's like you dropped into another universe. And even Don Lemon, the massive leftist that he is, does not know what to do with the brother of Stephon Clark, who, in my opinion, only 41 years of law enforcement. He likewise is, again, high as fuck in front of Don Lemon. Here's the interesting point, and I'll go into some information later, because we are going to have to take the break. In my estimation, this was purposeful. Now, are you what or whom are you serving as a media corporate giant like CNN or any other venue when you decide that you're going to allow someone that you want to interview into a seat to be interviewed when you have a pretty credible idea that they are drunk, inebriated, or, as I indicated, high as fuck? When you hear this after the break, I suspect even you may be the most dense individual on the planet hearing this live and direct now. Even that individual, though I know that's not my audience, I'm just using that as an example, even somebody of that nature would conclude, wow, this guy is high as fuck. And it would be quite true. Now, as a producer for CNN, having a relatively good idea, because I'm sure the producers of CNN have seen a lot of bizarro people in their years, why would you let this person on your show? He doesn't present well. He doesn't do anything for the Clark family in any kind of a positive fashion, portray them in a positive light. Don Lemon allowed him on the show, and the producers of CNN for that particular segment decided they were going to allow this brother, whose last name is Clark, on the show as well. My first thought is that they were completely cognizant of his state of affairs in his brainulus, and they decided that they were going to take advantage of him anyway, which, by the way, is exactly what they did. We're going to go to a break. Thanks to everyone in chat. Thanks to Mary Brockman. We'll be back in just a bit. Talk about news. Do I ever have news? Holy crap. And I have some sad information about local law enforcement. But you know me. I'm not going to take a cup of shut the fuck up.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it again.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about?
Just like the last question that you cut a couple seconds.
Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media studios in Sacramento, Fornicalia, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And because of the shooting of Stephon Clark, a lot of really ridiculous things have been occurring here in Sacramento. And I told you that I was going to play an audio cut. It's actually a piece of video from YouTube. And I'm also getting some information from chat that it looks like there's a vacancy on the 9th Circuit. I haven't found the URL for that, but during a break I'll probably be looking for that. And sort of at the last second, at the top of the hour, it looks like Dan Butcher may be calling in after the top of the hour break as well. After having told you that, I talked about Stormy Daniels. I got to set this up for you a little bit. As I indicated before the break, Stephon Clark was shot and killed by two SAC PD, Sacramento Police Department officers. There have been all sorts of protests all week, shutting down a freeway, shutting down the Sacramento Kings venue 3 nights in a row, attempting to shut down the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office, attempting to shut down the Sacramento City Hall, etc. What happened after having that occurred is that, by the way, the Sacramento Kings decided that they were going to make an endowment, that is to say free cash, to the Clark family so that there could be cut an agreement for the protesters to allow people who wanted to see the Sacramento Kings basketball game to allow them a pass to come into the venue. I don't know. To me, that sort of sounds like a bribe or extortion. I could be wrong. I'm just a fat little guy sitting in front of a microphone on video talking about things like that. But what I don't do is I don't get on CNN in front of Don Lemon and pull a lot of a few asshat maneuvers like this out of a rear spheroid receptacle and listen to the interplay. This is the brother of Stephon Clark, who, as I indicated, the producers decided would be incredibly wise to let onto the show with CNN's Don Lemon. Gosh, what do you make out of this?
Joining me now is Stephon's brother, Stephon Clark. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's tough, but we appreciate you joining us on this day. Today, I know it's even tougher because there was a wake held for your brother, Stephon. First, let me express again my sympathy here. How's your family holding up? How are you holding up? What does that mean?
Next question.
Okay. Obviously, you are in grief right now, and listen.
I'm not in grief.
All right.
We haven't slept. We haven't ate. The media keeps following us everywhere we go. The only person that got the message, and that was just before we came on the air, was the mayor. He has called me, and he said he's going to help us build the library and the recreational center. That's 24 hours. I am.
So okay. The mayor said he's going to help you build a library?
And a 24-hour recreational center for the kids.
Yeah.
For everybody. We love everybody. He's going to help me. He's going to be a part of it. You know what I mean? He's going to walk out. You know what? I'm not even going to address anymore. You know, just know that I'm going to be real connected. We're going to work with each other. We're going to work with each other. I love my city. I'm Sac strong. I did all this for my city. We are the example of how to do it right. What the media does, they wait till a loved one dies. They find out it's a tragedy. They swarm that person. They put them in grief. They ruin their lives forever. Their lives are never the same. Don Lemon, let me talk to my people, okay? Yeah. You black, I'm black. Let's be black now. Don't you do that, Don Lemon.
Well, I just want to tell you that the media.
Hold on. I'm not blaming the media. Okay. I'm not blaming, but the way you guys treat us. You guys, I told you I stopped calling them out. We have, how many phones do we have in the family?
Can you let me get a word
7,
in, please? Because listen, I have to manage
8.
the time here so that we can get something out of this interview because a lot of people are watching, and you're through the media, whether you like it or not, your brother's story will be told. The media is giving you a platform.
We love Stephon. I am. Yeah. Don Lemon, say his name.
So tell me about your brother, please.
Don Lemon, say his name.
Stephon, listen, you're in grief. I'm sorry for that.
He's not going to say his name. I know how it is. We'll never do CNN. You messed up on our name. You sent our driver late.
Well, and
that's messed up.
I thank you so much for joining us. And
Black people
my heart goes out for you.
We love CNN. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, brother. All right.
And that was the interview right there. Now, what's missing, what I can't portray to you yet because I don't possess the technology, I'm not sufficiently facile to know how to do this. What was missing, and I'll give what you need to look for when you go to your favorite search engine or you go to YouTube. And on YouTube, you can find it under Stephon, Stephon, Clark, Clarke. Stephon Clark clashed with CNN's Don Lemon during an uncomfortable live interview. You need to see it to see the look on this guy's face. At that point, I would submit to you, he's not necessarily on the same planet with you and me. However, the information that I told you about leads me to conclude, and I will tell you this. I got about 18 more minutes left before the top of the hour. I hope to get another story in before Dan gets here. is I can only conclude that the Sacramento Police Department is equally now craven and feckless as the City of Berkeley Police Department. Because here's what happened. I had it on good information that at the funeral, that brother that you just heard was quite high. And another individual who was at the funeral and doing law enforcement activities agreed. Al Sharpton came today to Sacramento. He's a death pimp and a poverty pimp who shows up when things like this occur and takes advantage of dead people. Al Sharpton came and did a sermon with the brother today. Yesterday, the Sacramento Police Department, when there were protests, freeway closures, and the King's venue was shut down, and they took over the streets of Sacramento, the Sacramento Police Department was essentially MIA, missing in action, while motorists were bullied by protesters. Windows were smashed. And yet, oddly enough, here's the strange thing. When the Kings have a game, now that the agreement has been made, it's all Sac PD hands on deck. You know, it's like screw the regular people trying to get home safely to their families. That was not important to Sac PD at the time. Oh, yeah, and by the way, folks noticed that Sac PD had at least 100 officers staged out of sight, and they refused to respond while CHP handled the protest and handled the protesters. CHP was involved because CHP is responsible for the security around the Capitol and also responsible for people getting onto the freeway, etc. Here's another little tidbit that I'm going to tell you that I'm guessing won't be written by the Sacramento Bee or any other alleged journalist in and around the environs of Sacramento, and that's this. One of the officers from CHP came on the air and asked for Code 3 cover with regard to handling some protesters. Code 3 cover in the parlance, by the way, means an officer needs assistance immediately. This is a call put out to all the agencies because they get to be linked on radio, and even if they aren't linked, the dispatchers hear it and they put it out as well. So CHP voices a Code 3 response call while trying to rescue a van from a crowd, and 0 Sac PD officers showed up to respond. Let that sink in. Political correctness in the Sacramento Police Department has now devolved to the point where apparently they're not much interested in covering other officers. To CHP, to you folks, I submit that perhaps that tells you all you need to know about the Sacramento Police Department. And how sad is that? What accountability do they have anymore to the people? They're feckless, they're cowards, and by that I mean, my guess would be mostly the brass. Sergeants on up. I had this discussion months ago when I excoriated the Berkeley Police Department for their lack of response, and they were told to stand down. And I think in time, if anyone inquires, and it won't be easy to discover, my guess would be somewhere, someone in Sac PD told the officers also to stand down. Why else would they not be responding in their own city to protesters shutting down freeways and public venues? And then when a California Highway Patrol officer calls for Code 3 cover and assistance, you hear crickets from Sac PD. The individual who happened to tell me information like this essentially You cannot believe, or perhaps you can, I'm sure you likely can believe, how angry, how sickened this person was to discover that Sac PD did not have their back. And as I indicated, the Sacramento Kings have now officially partnered with BLM, Black Lives Matter, and they set up an endowment fund for the family. To me, I say, it looks and it smells, in terms of the sniff test, the smell test, a lot like extortion. Kings paying money for the protesters in BLM not to mess with their people because, as I indicated, on 3 consecutive nights, protesters blocked the venue and would not allow people to go into the venue itself. On Channel 3, the mayor of the city of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, said the outcome was, quote, just wrong, regardless of the legalities. Stop and consider that for a moment, because that's going to go to court. Now imagine that you're a Sac PD officer. Hell, imagine that you're a CHP officer in the city of Sacramento, tasked to protect the Capitol. As far as that goes, it's still their job. But imagine that you have the mayor of the city of Sacramento telling everyone in Sac PD that he couldn't give a fuck less about the facts, because obviously the facts aren't in. And he said quite clearly, no matter the legalities, well, hell, it was just wrong. Do you suspect in your wildest, most fevered, fetid dreams that just might tend to add a little bit of fuel to the fire? My guess would be, yeah, that very well may do that. Because, see, there are some things that perhaps the mayor hasn't considered. And why in regular circles, in polite society, you don't snap to judgments like this. And so a lot of people were saying, how could the 2 officers shoot 20 rounds themselves? And my answer is, that's fairly easy. The Sacramento County Sheriff's Department carries the Glock 17 that has 17 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the pipe. That's 18 rounds. Sac PD carries the SIG. It has almost as many rounds. So you could theoretically fire 10 rounds without changing magazine. But stop. You wouldn't need to reload. What happens is, as we're trained, as everyone knows, and I did it because I was the range master for a 2,000 plus, well, I'll just say it. I was the range master for the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. I was in charge of firearms training. So I may know a thing or two about how these things work. You fire, and we train to fire until the threat stops. And we fire for center mass or the head. The threat must stop, period. We do not teach, nor can we ever remotely hope to teach, to shoot for arms, to shoot for legs, or anything other than center mass, and not to wound, not to kill, to stop, period. When the threat stops, the firing should stop. It's no more complicated than that. So, Mayor Darrell Steinberg has decided that the facts are not particularly something that he's not particularly interested in. So what he's not considering is the air unit that was overhead was telling these officers what they saw, and they were being given directions at night. At the minimum, it appears that you would have, because the officers didn't just drive down the street one night and decide, hey, look, there's a guy, let's go arrest him, and better yet, they didn't wake up that morning and say, let's see, I think this is going to be a really good day to just kill a black guy. Because every officer knows that when you get into a shooting, myself included, because that has occurred to me, what results, no matter anything else, is the shitstorm of your life that you don't want to get involved in. That's the last thing that officers want to get involved in. So going back to them, they have it in their minds, because this is how it's been dispatched, that there's possibly a burglary in this area. And burglary, at least temporarily, in the state of California, it may get downgraded, but at least in California, it's a felony. So the air unit also indicated to the officers who were responding that it would appear the suspect had something in his hands. It's night. The air unit above has no idea whatsoever about the ethnicity of the person, much less the sex. There's a really good chance it's going to be male, but that's not a certainty either. They have no idea to whose house that particular individual is running. It's dark. Then your partner says gun, and we know that to be a fact. One of the two officers said gun. We have training that when one of any responding officers say gun, that there's a high probability that one of the officers involved saw what they considered or thought to be a firearm or some kind of a weapon in the hands of a suspect. What you don't do is you don't stop to ask your partner who has said gun. You don't stop to ask, are you sure? And by the way, stop right just for a moment. You know, you and I need to decide right now who's going to shoot. Is it going to be me? Is it going to be you? Shall we draw straws? Nor do you have the time, if you say gun, if one of the partners says gun, to try to suss out if it's a handgun, a shotgun, a rifle, a taser. You have no idea what's in the suspect's hands because, again, it's night. It's dark. That luxury, and it is a luxury, just doesn't exist. And if your partner says gun, what you're not going to do, which is what any number of people here in the city of Sacramento and its surrounding environs have said, why didn't you use a taser on this individual? Let's consider that for just a moment. If your partner says gun, you're not going to answer deadly force with a taser unless you yourself don't mind being dead. The other question that's in the offing is that apparently 20 rounds were fired. So were there 10 each from each officer? Were there a predominance of rounds from one particular officer over the other officer who was not in a good visual position to shoot? We don't know. That hasn't been said. How many hits were there? This is an incredible response. They fired 20 rounds. There's a big difference, a massive difference, all the difference in the world between 20 rounds fired, which is the clarion call all across Sacramento and through the rest of the nation, 20 rounds fired towards what turned out to be an unarmed black man. And yes, the fact pattern is that apparently he did not have a firearm. He was possessing an iPhone. So did one officer fire with a predominance of shots because his partner was too close or couldn't return fire? The other aspects to consider are this. What was their backstop? What was their background? In other words, what's behind them as they shoot? They should be thinking about that. What were the lighting conditions like in that backyard at that time? Were they by themselves? Was it two officers by themselves? And were they relatively assured that there was only, in fact, one suspect involved in this incident? We don't know. Did they have backup coming? We don't know. What's the history of that neighborhood like? We don't know. What's the premise history of any of those addresses in that neighborhood? I should tell you that at least in the Sacramento Sheriff's Department, dispatchers can pull up a premise history. That is to say, all the calls that were dispatched to a given address, and they will have access to the information of the people encountered, what happened on a particular event, did people go to jail, an event number for reference, etc., and the officers that responded as well. What was the premise history of that particular address? Had Sac PD been there before? What was told to the officers as they were responding or before they responded? No one knows. Have there been a rash of burglaries in the area? Were there arrests? No one knows. Darrell Steinberg doesn't know. Have those particular officers specifically been there before to that address? I don't know. Darrell Steinberg doesn't know. I don't think anyone knows. Were there other associated crimes? And if so, what were those other associated crimes? Were there crimes of violence? Were there other crimes of violence in that neighborhood? Had there been other shootings in that neighborhood? Were there also, say, directed patrols by Sac PD in the area due to previous crime patterns or trends? I don't know. I don't think Darrell Steinberg knows. I don't think the public knows. Who's on probation or parole in that area? By the way, in Sacramento, you can go to a couple of websites and determine in that neighborhood, in your local neighborhood in Sacramento, who's on probation. Did they happen to know, the officers, did they happen to know any people in the area that were already on parole or probation or had a proclivity to conduct and commit the kind of crime to which they were responding? Did either one of them or both of them happen to know the suspect and his criminal history when it turns out they finally find out who he is? Did they know? What was his criminal history? And he did have one. Or was he a complete cipher to them? Was he a complete unknown to them? I don't know. Darrell Steinberg doesn't know. The public doesn't know. And I'll submit that BLM and the BLM protesters don't know shit about this event. See, those are just a few of the questions off the top of my head that perhaps someone who had a curious mind would be positing regarding this event. And clearly Darrell Steinberg is not in that category. Now, that's an opinion. But from a man in a position of power such as him to express the lack of total confidence, the lack of any confidence, I should say, whatsoever, in the Sacramento Police Department, and damns everyone by a wide sweeping brush, and that's exactly what happened that Darrell Steinberg did. All he did was throw more gasoline on the flames locally. Okay. Just some other questions that are off at the top of my head. Before we go, we got a top of the hour break coming in. Hey, what kinds of calls did these officers handle before they went to that particular call? Was it a violent call? Was it a stressful call? Did it involve weapons of some sort? Were there arrests made? What occurred prior on their shift? Darrell Steinberg, that's why you're a fucktard. And that's why there's going to be a big problem. Chief Hahn, you have a big problem in your department. And I'm beginning to submit it's not necessarily with your officers. Perhaps it's time to start focusing some of that really, really critical thought and thinking inwards. Because now what you've done is you're creating another Berkeley PD right in Sacramento PD. And who suffers? The taxpayers and the people who expect the Sacramento Police Department to do its fucking job.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it again.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about?
Just like the last question we cut a couple seconds.
Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right. Oh, God.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I have to tell you one thing. Welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Network broadcasting studios, where I am in fact broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. But I have to tell you another thing as well, and that is this. I am very proud of myself for taking a big cup of namaste. Namaste. Center, little one. Center, grasshopper. Center, be cool. I didn't yell. I didn't scream at the beginning of the show when I was trying to assemble the show, sort of last moment when I was discovering all of these revelations. I took some time. I took big, deep breaths, and BZ didn't get all stupid. Like initially, at the first 5 minutes of the show, I really wanted to cork off, but I didn't. And for that, I have my own sanity. I feel like it's well within grasp. And having said that, the kind gentleman who is from Texas himself on the line is Dan Butcher, the #1 best guy in media today, unlike what Sackhead Sean says about Dan, which is just damn offensive, okay? The #2 best guy in the business? No, I'm sorry. I'm not buying that. Dan Butcher of High Plains Media is the #1 guy in the media these days. Dan, welcome aboard. Good to see you on a Thursday night, sir.
Good evening, BZ.
First off, okay, quick like a bunny, we got to make sure that everybody knows where you are. Where's your central site, your new site, where everything stems from this site? I mean, you want to find something, you can find it. You can find anything there at Dan's site. Where is that, Dan?
You just go to hpdailynews.com. That'll get you to everything that we have. It'll get you to the High Plains Daily News. It'll get you to High Plains Talk Radio. You name it, it'll get you to everything that we're all about there. Of course, we are the largest media outlet in our region. And as far as mid-sized markets here in the state of Texas, sized media outlet in the state of Texas. So something that we're quite proud of, and something that we've worked very hard at to achieve over the last 10 years that I've been doing this. So anyway, we're very proud of what we do. We bring news and information straightforward and with no, quite honestly, no bullshit. And I think that's something that a lot of people are craving today. They're craving the news, the truth. And that's what we strive for. We just do our best, and so far, hey, we have a very loyal following, about 10.5 million page views each month. So, like I said, I think we're doing news the right way, and we're going to continue to do that.
Should I respond and say in kind that that's about 10.5 million page views more than I get? Because I could say that, and that would be factual. Just throwing it out there. So for folks who think that Dan is just sort of a casual, I have a blog and I'll make a post every week or maybe every couple of weeks or something like that. No. Be still your quaking heart. Dan is an actual honest-to-God journalist and has been so for quite some time. Managed newspapers, done all those things, an actual, real, honest-to-God journalist with a curious mind, unlike 99.7235 of the rest of the journalists whom I quantify as American media maggots throughout the United Snakes of America. Before I go into some of the other topics that I'd like to get into, one thing that kind of struck me is I need to clean up a little Texas stuff, and with luck you have maybe kind of an update on the stuff. That lovely individual in Texas who decided that he was going to kill people, for a while it seemed as though there wasn't a lot of information coming out on him. Is there any new information about either him or the event in the intervening, say, week or so?
Well, he's dead.
Well, yeah. Besides that
would be the big news. Let me tell you, it was a very interesting case how it developed, because this individual, he was, he was very mysterious at first. I mean, they didn't have a clue on him.
Right.
Like the early days of a lot of people were comparing him to the Unabomber. Very mysterious, didn't know who he was or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, he got really, quite honest, he either wanted to be caught or he got real sloppy. And so he decided to go into a FedEx office outside of Austin, Texas, about an hour outside of Austin, and have the packages, the bombs, shipped into Austin. And, of course, by one of the bombs accidentally prematurely went off. Thankfully, the one worker that was injured was not hit by any of the shrapnel or anything like that, but was injured by the shock wave from the pipe bomb. So these were pretty powerful bombs. And then, of course, they did find another one that was in that location. They were able to track it down before it went anywhere. But they were able to get this guy on surveillance tape at this point. So they had video of him. They were also able to track down. He was buying a lot of the materials at the same location. Of course, that was going to be one of the first things they did. They were looking for somebody that was buying the components of the bombs in mass at one location, and sure enough, that's what had happened. So they were able to through the video from the FedEx office and through the store location where he had bought some of the materials and stuff, they were able to track this guy down, and they tracked him down to a Red Roof Inn, and then down in Round Rock, Texas, and then of course the guy, he was being approached by police officers. The officers did shoot at him because they knew that he was fixing to detonate a bomb.
Right.
He set a bomb off and blew himself up inside of a car. One of the officers was injured, but thankfully no life-threatening injuries or anything like that. So, but we're still looking at just today. The police chief in Austin said that this guy was a domestic terrorist. So take it for what it's worth. We still don't know. We're still we have a lot of information on the fellow. We still don't have a real motive as to why he was doing this.
That was
he was a young man. That was the thing. He was a young man. Seemed to have his life in order. He had bought the house he was living in, had a couple of roommates with him. The police detained his roommates. One of his roommates was a black man, which was interesting since at first glance,
they thought it was racial.
Target seemed to be minorities. Yeah.
Yep.
So that blew that out of the water a little bit. So was this really racial? Maybe, maybe not. So we have almost as much. I have almost as much mystery with this investigation as we do with the Las Vegas shooting, except the Austin Police Department's being a little more forthcoming, and the Texas Department of Public Safety are being a little more forthcoming than what you're seeing in the Las Vegas investigation.
I think you're being really kind with that. I was hoping that perhaps in the interim,
I was trying to be kind.
See, that's why you're the consummate gentleman. You're always the gentleman.
Let's
when
cut
you're
to the
here.
chase in Las Vegas. That investigation is fucking bullshit. Let's just cut to the chase there. That's just a travesty. What's taking place in that investigation. But anywho, moving forward.
The funny thing about that, and I at the beginning I started to think, okay, it's looking as though you can begin to compare it to the Las Vegas shooting where 58 people were killed.
Right.
But in this instance, it doesn't seem to me as though it's abnormal insofar as there doesn't seem to be at least yet, what anyone has traced to some sort of a predicating event as to why at this time in this month, this kid on that day corked off and decided that making bombs was for him. I still don't think that anybody has They've been able to put their finger directly on, okay, this is the causal event. This is what caused this guy to cork off and do all of these things, which, by the way, requires a certain facility to be able to pull off. To assemble these things in a way so that you don't kill yourself, or that, unfortunately, like what occurred in the FedEx office, if you're shipping them, you have to make sure that they can get kicked around and whatnot as they're being mailed. And then he changed things up a little bit and put tripwires.
Right.
I don't know into what we always want to pigeonhole somebody because we want it to be convenient. We want it to be easily explainable to assuage our own fevered minds. And this kid is not easily explainable. Unless you have some more insight on this, Dan, that I certainly don't.
Well, BZ, here's one of the stranger things of this case. Of course, in labeling this guy a domestic terrorist today, the police chief actually said, "Hey, that this probably wasn't racism. He wasn't specifically singling out attacks on blacks or Latinos, etc." Now, here's the more interesting thing about this, or one of the craziest things about this is that Condit actually left a 25-minute confession video on his cell phone.
Yes,
and it did not. He confessed to the bombings, but it didn't shed any light as to his motive and as to why he was doing it. He said, "Yeah, I was doing this," but he didn't explain why. He didn't have a manifesto. He didn't have anything like this. He just said, "Yeah, I did this." He rambled on for 25 minutes talking about how he made the bombs, how he did this and this and this, the different locations, but it didn't shed any light on why he was doing it. He didn't mention anything about terrorism. He didn't mention anything about hate. Nothing at all. So that just adds to the mystery of why did he do this? And my conclusion is that that Mr. Condit took it to the grave with him as to why he was doing this.
It's one of those things that's absolutely confounding because, again, we like to pigeonhole things so that they're easily digestible. We can understand it. The best thing that I could say in summary is, unfortunately, people were killed. It was, 3 people killed or 4?
Yes.
Okay.
We had, trying to think off the top of my head, 3 people killed total, or maybe it was 2. I've got to remember off the top of my head here. Definitely, we had 2 people killed in the initial bombings.
Right.
We had one elderly lady that was injured, and that would have been all. The 2 would have been the fatalities, and then the one elderly lady that was injured. Thankfully, all of the rest of the injuries after that were very minor in comparison to the first couple of attacks.
Well, and the other one was what they termed an incendiary device, which means incendiary means it burns. Yes. Okay, so it's not It's not crafted to explode. The only comforting thing out of this is that this is an anomaly. You have to be smarter than the average bear to assemble things like this. You have to be highly motivated and fairly skilled scientifically to do things like this. You have to be able to build things. And so, in conclusion, I submit that, this guy is an anomaly. Why he came out of Texas, why that situation occurred, I don't know. I just remember the chief of Austin saying that after having listened to that 25-minute recording, he concluded something similar to, "This is one messed up puppy."
Yeah, he said that the actual just to clarify what I was talking about earlier about the casualties. Mm-hmm. You had 2 young black men that were killed in the initial bombings, and then a elderly Hispanic woman that was injured in those initial ones. Those were the most serious injuries, and the two fatalities. The police chief actually said this. about Connie. He said, instead, it's the outcry of a very challenged young man talking about challenges in his personal life that led him to this point. You could go a lot of different directions with this.
Yeah.
You know, did he have issues with it? I mean, did he go on Norman Bates because he had issues with his mother or anything like that? I mean, I would quite honestly, since he killed himself, and unfortunately, a lot of the times when these folks do kill themselves like this, and you don't, and a lot of times do you have the clues? You have the posts that were out there on social media, or they leave behind a manifesto. They leave some type of trail behind, and that's what's unique and very interesting about the Las Vegas shooting and the Austin bombings is there's not nothing leading up to the incidents. Matter of fact, Las Vegas Police Department recently released a video of the Vegas shooter in the days leading up. I mean, he's going down, he's getting dinner, he's coming and going. He's going about gambling like he always did. That's why nobody suspected anything in the hotel from the guy. He went about his normal business, and then one night started shooting with all of the weapons that he had smuggled into the hotel. But it wasn't uncommon for him it would have been uncommon. What would have raised suspicion is if he had not shown up with a lot of luggage, if he had not shown up to stay for more than just a couple of days. Now, that would have raised suspicion because it was normal for him to do that type of stuff, show up and stay for days, weeks at a time. And then you're looking at here, with the Austin bomber, up until the days leading to the first bombing, by every sense and practicality, this young man was just a normal person. He was a homeowner in the Austin area, and seemed like he'd had a pretty decent upbringing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Family completely shocked by all this, and then all of a sudden, he decides to go into the pipe bomb business, ends up killing 2 innocent victims, injuring a whole slew of other people, and then leaves a 25-minute quote-unquote confession video that tells us absolutely nothing about why he did it.
The Las Vegas shooter was a whale, and it pissed me off when a lot of folks were saying, well, why didn't the people that were moving this guy's luggage, why didn't they report him? Or why didn't the people that were bringing him dinner in his room, why didn't they report him? As if it's their fucking responsibility to do that. When you looked at the videos of the Las Vegas shooter, the first thing you found out was this is like any other video, and the luggage that you can see on the carts looked like any other piece of luggage that you would expect somebody like a whale to be taking up to their big suite. This was nothing out of the ordinary. And I said then, and I'll say it now, back the fuck off of these employees. They're doing their job. He was a whale. He made money for them, and so they treated him and comped him a lot of stuff. It stinks, it stinks, it stinks. I can much more readily explain away this bombing guy, Condit, than I can the Las Vegas shooter.
Definitely can.
Much more.
Yeah, definitely
readily.
can. Yeah, because and here's the thing, because it was so out of the ordinary that definitely the actions of the Austin bomber went out of the ordinary, especially the days while he was carrying out the bombings. He completely went out of his normal patterns of life with happiness. The difference between that and the Vegas shooter was up until the night. Of course, we now know that he had maybe planned to carry out a shooting at another location at a different time and stuff like that. We do know because of the different things in the investigation that he had planned to do this for a while. He did plan it out, but up until then, nothing out of the ordinary. He played cards, he played slots, he played blackjack.
Yep.
He won money. This was the thing.
Yeah.
He was winning cash, tipping everybody, laughing and joking. The one very telling video is of the where he's got the hotel employee that's carrying up the big cart of luggage.
Right.
That you know that there's ammunition, and you know that there are weapons inside those suitcases and bags. But yet here's the Vegas shooter carrying on as normal. They're laughing.
Yeah.
They're having a good time. And that poor young man that's carrying all of that, think about this. That poor young man that's carrying all that luggage up has no earthly idea what's about to unfold. And now he's got to live with that the rest of his life, knowing that he carried all that up to that suite. And but no, I mean, this guy just, there was no way that the hotel could have seen what was going on. But the Austin bomber, he was a little different, because he not only did he go out of his normal patterns of life and what he was doing, he changed up the patterns of the bombing. Where he had a system in place where he was virtually untraceable, and then all of a sudden, the way he started with the tripwire and then trying to send them through FedEx and stuff like that, you could tell that he was getting spooked for some reason and got really sloppy. If he had probably stayed to his original pattern, we would still be reporting about people getting injured and bombs going off every other day in Austin.
He changed up his pattern quite a bit, and that, for somebody like that, he doesn't fit the general profile that I've been aware of with regard to bombers. For a short time, people say, BZ, where haven't you been in law enforcement? Because I was in EOD for a while, and I got out of EOD because I didn't want to be known as the guy whose nickname is Stubby. So after having been in EOD, I know what it takes to defuse these things, and an acquaintance of mine was killed, and I saw him the last week of his life, Arlie McCree, when he was doing a debt cord demo in Las Vegas, of all places, back in 1987 when the Challenger went down, when I went to go see a Tactical Response Association demo. But having worked in EOD, you find that there's a pattern to people, like the Unabomber, and it becomes sort of their signature. This cat, he changed that stuff up. We got about what do we got? We got about 2 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. Folks, we're talking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Media, highplainsdailynews.com. You can go there to read all of his stuff. Tons of articles all the time from Texas and around the globe as well. Sports, radio, TV, he's got it all right there. When we come back, Dan, I'd like to come and see if the chat room, folks, thanks for being in chat. Dan's in chat. Simone, thanks for being in chat. Mike's in chat. Mary, Right Wing Aviator, thank you all for being in chat. And there's been a great conversation going back and forth in chat about, Mike asked about, he said, ask Dan about the Texas Tower shooting. Folks were talking about government schools forcing Ritalin down kids and how that may be responsible for a lot of the things that we're seeing. Great questions. So when we come back, I'd like to tickle Dan's brain about Sacramento, because there are some even more things that are coming that are disturbing about this. And also, when we come back, I'd like to ask Dan about his general opinion about what happened in Sacramento as well, because I tried my very level best not to cork off, and I'm kind of proud of myself for having not done so, because when I get home, if the wife is up, she's always happy when I'm not absolutely vibrating with just anger and whatnot. So, honey, when I come home, I won't be vibrating with anger. That's the reason I do the damn show, okay? Folks, don't go anywhere. We're talking to Dan Butcher. You are listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin right here on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey guys, this is Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Check us out every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network.
And this is Sackhead Clint. As the best-looking one of the bunch, it's my duty to remind you to check us out on our YouTube channel.
And don't forget to check us out on the SHR Media Facebook page. The best-looking one? Really? You going to go there?
Well,
Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the SHR
Voters' Choice.
Media
I have the award right here.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
And Sackheads BZ.
Wait, I'm Sean.
No, I'm Sean.
All right, listen, we'll figure this out every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the
Where the hell is Clint?
On the SHR Media Network, www.shrmedia.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube. Now, right back to this amazing show right here on the SHR Media Network.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And it is the SHR Media Network. You're listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media studios, 2 miles from the omnipresent locus of evil, at least on the left coast, the capital of Sacramento, California. And now we're going to talk about Sacramento, California, because let me make the statement up front. I just was given a link by Simone in chat, and you can look at the video now. The Sacramento Police Department has released a video, and it looks to me like it's from the airship, where they released video showing the officers shooting Stephon Clark. So that's on YouTube.com. So you can find that there, and you can also see that whatever the hell his brother's name was, just going nutty, like I indicated at the beginning of the show. If that dude wasn't, if he didn't have coke or meth on board at the time he was doing that, then I'm a frog. I don't know, maybe I am a frog. In any event, we've got Dan Butcher here. There's some, Dan, I don't know how well schooled on what's been happening here in Sacramento you happen to be, but it's had repercussions all across the fruited plain. And it's turning out that Sac PD is a bunch of feckless, craven cowards, and they're showing their arses, not unlike Berkeley PD, the city of Berkeley PD, the University of California at Berkeley, and to a degree the San Jose Police Department. And I find this to be an extremely disturbing trend. And that trend, of course, was taken on, and the ball was carried with the Broward County Sheriff, Scott, whatever the hell his name was, who still is not admitting that he did anything at all. He's a perfectly lovely guy. And in fact, I happened to see earlier today an individual in Florida, in Parkland, a member of the media, caught up with the sheriff, asked him some pointed questions. All the sheriff did was obfuscate and derail and obfuscate, and then finally pointed at the guy and said, "You're getting angry about this, aren't you?" Until the sheriff, it was discovered, was en route to a Democrat fundraiser. So, hey, no bias whatsoever on behalf of that sheriff. Anyway, but I find this to be a very, very disturbing trend, which could potentially have some extremely serious consequences, not just for law enforcement in Sacramento City and county, but for law enforcement in California and law enforcement all across the nation. And that's it. We're finding out more and more that the figureheads of these various agencies, the chiefs, the sheriffs, are in leftist cities, and you have no other conclusion to draw other than Sacramento is in fact a leftist town. It's a government town, but it's a leftist town. And I can draw no other conclusion. I told you earlier that I have information from various people who I still speak to in law enforcement that Sac PD had 100 officers, and they stood by as they let CHP decide that they're going to intervene and take care of some various protesters, when in fact it was occurring in the city of Sacramento jurisdiction. And that as the protesters were shutting down I-5 and as they were blocking people getting into the Kings game, which is the basketball team here in Sacramento, well, the Sacramento Kings reached an agreement with Black Lives Matter. And they said that they would fund an endowment for the family if only you'd let our paying ticket holders into the venue. Because for the past 3 nights, not tonight, but the past 3 nights, the protesters from BLM et al. Have decided that it would be just a wonderful thing to block the folks who had paid to go into these venues from even getting close to them at all. So, Dan, I don't know, call me wacky. Does that sound kind of like extortion to you? Does that sound like Vinny the Goomba walking into the corner store in New York and saying, "Hey, I need some protection money, because you know those big windows in the front? Those big windows in the front one day, they could break." Sounds like it to me. I could be wrong. Any thoughts, Dan?
Well, let me tell you something. Anytime the walking bobblehead Al Sharpton shows up somewhere, like he has in Sacramento, you can guarantee there's going to be lots of extortion money being extorted out of the taxpayers over something. Because Sharpton doesn't show, he's never met any type of situation like this that he doesn't like where he can make a buck off of it. So, you're going to see the likes of Al Sharpton and other folks, show up and try to make a few bucks off of this, and then they'll be gone. They'll dump the community, and you see that happen time after time after time. Now, bottom line, what I've seen so far of the video and different reactions of the police and stuff, this is one of those situations where, you're on the ground with the police officers. Do I think the police officers intentionally, shot Mr. Clark? No. Do I think they were reacting in a situation in a dark back? Did they have a clue that he was in his grandmother's backyard?
No.
I doubt it.
No. Definitely
did
not.
Did they have a clue that he had a cell phone instead of a weapon? Depending on different circumstances, it's dark. Unfortunately, things like that happen when you have somebody running from the police, different situations. Do I think this was probably more a tragic mistake than anything? Yes, I do. That's my personal opinion. I think this is more a tragic mistake that was made by the officers dealing with the situation on the ground, what they had to work with. It was a tragic mistake that this man lost his life. Now, let's move forward to the three-ring circus that is now taking place in Sacramento over this. You're taking this could have happened, whether the fact that, of course, Clark was a black man just amplifies this all out of proportion, like is often seen with these situations. You have every leftist minority group that does that. Let me stress this to you, ladies and gentlemen, especially to the minorities and specifically to the black community in Sacramento. If you think that the likes of Black Lives Matters, the Black Panthers, the good walking bobblehead who claims to be a reverend, Al Sharpton, that they give a damn about you, you are mistaken. They are the last people that they will ever care about. Okay? Al Sharpton does not give a damn about you. Calypso Louis Farrakhan does not give a damn about you.
Oh, hell no.
The new Black Panthers do not give a damn about you. Now, do they care about using you as a political pawn?
Yes, you're
for
a tool.
Political agenda? Yes, they do. Does Al Sharpton care about using you to make a buck? You damn well better believe he does. He's going to milk this. Remember, he owes the government over $5 million in taxes that he's still trying to pay off. So he's got to milk it every bit that he can to help pay those taxes off. He hasn't had a good talk show in a while, and he's been out of the spotlight for a while. So he's going to make the most of this that he possibly can. Then he's going to fly off to the next unfortunate tragedy and try to make a buck off of that. But these interest groups could care less about the minority community, specifically the black community in Sacramento. They could care less about the family of Mr. Clark. They could care less about you folks. Do not be mistaken. They could care less about you. They're there because they are agenda-driven. Some of them are trying to make some money off of you folks. So please be aware of that. Are there some folks there that want to see something good come of this? Yes, they are. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are going to use this situation and the tragic death of Mr. Clark, for other motives, ulterior motives, other than addressing what actually happened. Was it a training issue? You know what? By the reaction of the officers with the body cam and everything like that, it seems they were following protocol. You might correct me if I'm wrong, BZ. From the overhead shots from the helicopter and everything like that, it seems like, to me, it just seems it was a very unfortunate death, a very unfortunate situation. Clark probably is at the wrong place at the wrong time when all of this was taking place. Of course, the officers were responding to the individual, I believe, breaking into vehicles and different things like that. And that's who they were trying to find. And the fact that he ran into the backyard and different things certainly would have made the officers suspicious and stuff like that. Were some of Mr. Clark's actions enough to warrant the officers to shoot him, different things like that? There's not clear enough video to tell that, especially from overhead and the body cams. So a lot of questions being raised. But do not think for a minute, folks, and looking at this, I do not buy the notion that Mr. Clark was assassinated by renegade police officers. You could tell there was a moment when one of the officers walked up and discovered that there was a cell phone there. His initial reaction in the video was, "Oh, fuck," realizing what had happened. He knew that, oh my God, something wrong has happened here, and you could tell in their voices that, oh my gosh, something's not right here. You could tell that they were upset about what had happened. This is not the same situation like we had. You have to remember, there's a famous video where we had a police officer who chased down a black man and gunned him down in the back. This was not in broad daylight. This was not one of these type of situations.
No, not at all.
Officers they were looking for a suspect in a dark backyard. Things led one thing to another. He ended up getting shot. The people said, well, these officers fire. They let off 10 rounds and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, they're responding. These officers are, they're taught to use force in a certain way to eliminate the threat, to stop the threat. So please, do not buy into the notion that these were renegade cops that assassinated a poor black man just for pure pleasure, just because they wanted to, because if you listen to the likes of Al Sharpton, the Black Panthers, the NAACP in this case, these folks are claiming that these officers, they shot poor Mr. Clark just because they wanted to. He was a black man. So hey, you know what? There's a black guy. You need to shoot him. Bam. All right, we got him. That's the way they're trying to portray it. They're trying to portray it like they were hunting this guy for sport or something. Folks, that's such bullshit. That's not what happened here. Don't buy into that narrative. This was a crime scene investigation. This was an active pursuit of a suspect. Clark, wrong place, the wrong time, in his own backyard. The officers responding. One thing led to another. It's a tragic accident. Is there some stuff that can be learned? Certainly. Are these officers criminally are they criminal in their actions? I highly doubt it, and I think the evidence so far supports the narrative that this was just a tragic accident. BZ, anybody out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm perceiving. And the other perception that I'm getting is that the caravan has rode into Sacramento from outside of Sacramento, set up the three-ring circus,
yes,
and at the front of that is Al Sharpton. And folks, I can't stress this enough. Anytime Al Sharpton is involved in anything, it's bad. It is bad news, and you need to question it very closely.
You talked about that, the murder of that particular individual. They had a video of him, and that officer was convicted of murder, period, and rightly so.
Yes.
In Baltimore, all 5 officers were overcharged. They were found to be innocent. In Ferguson, the officer was found to be innocent. 2 days ago, this occurred. Baton Rouge police officers won't be charged in the fatal shooting of Alton Sterling. And if you remember that particular incident, I think that was 2016, right around in there. 2015?
Yes.
Okay. And they went through all sorts of things, and they were exonerated. Now, what will probably occur out of all of this, and they're making mouth music right now about it, is that OIS, or officer-involved shootings, and I need to be upfront, I was the range master for a 2,000-plus deputy department, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, for a while. So I trained in the two most dangerous and created programs for the two most dangerous venues in all of training: guns and cars, cars and guns. Guns and cars are going to kill cops, period, end of statement. And I had the luxury of training in both levels, both areas. So I have a pretty good idea what I'm talking about. I was also involved in my very own critical incident in which a shooting occurred and a person was killed. So I come from a venue of these two officers did not wake up that morning and say, and then when they got to work say, I'm not doing anything later on tonight, are you? No. Let's go and see if perhaps we can find a young black male to kill, because as we all know, one of the officers involved was black. It's a matter of living hell. It is A, sheer terror for you, and B, once concluded, is a continued living hell. So the other attorneys decided that they were going to expose the names of these two officers. And, of course, just like with Darren Wilson and Ferguson, they've been receiving death threats and will probably continue to receive death threats for the end of their career. Now, whatever happens to them from this point on, who knows? Maybe they stay with Sac PD. Maybe they don't. Now, the mayor of the city of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, has already decided that he's going to kick these two officers to the curb, and to a great deal, maybe not so much the hierarchy of the city of Sacramento Police Department, because they have to be, Darrell Steinberg, a white guy, has to be very careful about the city of Sacramento Police Department chief, a black guy, Chief Khan, who is new, who came from the city of Rockland. So he has to tread a little bit more carefully, because melanin count is, in fact, a factor in this incident as well. And, of course, Darrell Steinberg, the mayor, doesn't want to look as though he's pointing an accusing finger, Jacques Couzet, at this brand new police chief, a black police chief from Rockland, who's the new city of Sacramento police chief, Daniel Hahn. So I'm sure the theme is, hey, back off the dude, let's give him a little rest. The other thing that I told people earlier, and I'll tell you now, is that earlier yesterday, the California Highway Patrol, and I have this on excellent authority, was having a problem with protesters around a van where they had surrounded that, and the CHP officer called for Code 3 cover. Now, dispatchers get that, and if they're happen to be trunking the same channel, perhaps they got the information directly, perhaps they didn't. My guess would be that once Code 3 cover was called, which means respond as quickly as possible, the officer is having a very serious problem. And as I indicated earlier at the beginning of the show, how many SPD officers showed up to cover the CHP officer? Because that's the first thing you do is cover your brother and sister officer. None. Dan, no SAC PD officers showed up to cover this CHP officer in the city of Sacramento limits. None. My guess would be they were told not to respond, which is what we found out precisely were orders given by the city of Berkeley Police Department and the University of California at Berkeley Police Department, from the hires, ups, chiefs, etc., down to the line level troops. I find that absolutely disgusting, and it's a trend, and it's a pattern, and I'm very afraid, Dan, that this pattern is going to continue. Do you in Texas see anything like this emerging?
We don't see that here in Texas, but of course, California, you tend to see a little bit of craziness taking place. BZ, I looked this up because I wanted to get some stats on, just because I was curious about officer-involved shootings in Sacramento. And so I pulled this up, and this is from 2015. 2015 statistics for the Sacramento Police Department. You had 263,060 dispatch calls for service, 14,931 arrests, 131 incidents of force. You had 2 officer-involved shootings in 2015. Now, total officer recent involved shootings, you had one on April 8th, 2016, July 11th, 2016, November 6th, 2016. In 2017, there were 5 officer-involved shootings. I think this was probably one of the first or second officer-involved shootings in Sacramento this year. But I bring that up. Because if you're listening to some of the audio from Sacramento right now, if you're listening to a lot of the, and I'm going to say this, it's a lot of outside influences coming in to stir things up in Sacramento.
Yes, precisely.
To hear Al Sharpton talking, you would think that the Sacramento Police Department is going around and gunning down innocent black men on the street corner every single day. That they're Wild West shooters. They're excessive use of force with their weapons. They're shooting at people at random. That's their first course of action to deal with anything here in the city of Sacramento, is to pull their gun and shoot somebody. Their first course of action, if a suspect or anybody blinks at them the wrong way, is to pull out their revolver and shoot them for no reason at all. Every single day you're seeing this. The officers are out of control. They're renegade. But the statistics show absolutely the reverse in this, the opposite, that actually that the police in Sacramento are and considering. Now I know that security for the state capitol is handled, of course, by the California Highway Patrol.
Correct.
And stuff like that. But still, considering that's also the state capitol there, and you have all kinds of different things, I think the Sacramento Police Department, I think the stats show that they have shown a lot of restraint in their use of force versus the narrative that's being portrayed concerning this unfortunate shooting incident.
Very true. And having served for 35 years for the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, just in that relatively short period of time, there were 3 deputies that worked for me that I can name who were killed. One of them was Van Trong. He was shot on the top of a chicken coop in the neck, chasing a suspect, an Asian suspect who was illegal, and he died in his own blood at the top of a chicken coop. Oh, by the way, that happened on Christmas. Then there was Robert French. He was a deputy that worked for me. He was shot and killed at the corner of Fulton and Auburn Boulevard. And then there was Danny Oliver. He was killed on Howe Avenue near an Expo Inn when he made a vehicle stop on a suspicious vehicle. That was that fuckhead Bracamonte that came out with a long gun and shot and killed Danny Oliver, my deputy. And then once having done that, he went and stole another car with his wife, and they went on a wild ride, took another vehicle at gunpoint, they went into Placer County, an adjacent county, and they had stolen a Placer County vehicle, and Michael Davis, a detective, a Placer County detective, came across Bracamonte, and he shot and killed the detective dead as well. That particular detective, Michael Davis, was shot and killed on the exact same day that his father had been killed, who was a deputy, a law enforcement officer, 20 years prior. So there are 3 people directly who have worked for me that were slain in abject blood that I know about, and that's just me. I'm just one little fat guy doing a radio show these days. Dan, we're going to have to wrap it up. I hate to go out on such a note, but it's time to go away. What were you going to say, Dan?
BZ, what I would just recommend, and I tell everybody, just let the investigation take its course. Let Sacramento Police Department, let the California Highway Patrol, whoever, all the investigation, everybody that's in this investigation, let it play out. Look at the actual facts, and I just have a gut feeling after covering these type of things for many, many years, you usually can get an idea early on in the investigation. And my gut feeling and instinct in this case is that it was just a very, very tragic accident. Nothing more, nothing less.
I would tend to agree. Folks, we've been talking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Media, High Plains HP, High Plains Daily News, and that's where you can read him. Dan, thank you very much for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it. I hate to go off on some kind of a downer. I have so much material, I may end up doing a show on the weekend, and I was thinking about doing a weekend show anyway. But there are so many other topics that we didn't get to. I hate to be sort of the Debbie Downer kind of person, but there's a trend and a pattern emerging these days in law enforcement, certainly in California, and I fear that it's spreading throughout the nation, where, folks, you're not as safe as you think you are. Simultaneously, it's the same time that leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots are focused like laser beams, locked on to removing your Second Amendment rights. Think about that conflict for a moment, if you will. Folks, good night.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can contact me on my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net, on Twitter @bzep, email bz@shrmedia.com. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility at reverbnation.com. Definitely, tonight, I would like to thank my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. I want to thank Dan Butcher for being here in the show tonight. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for being involved in the chat room. I really appreciate the interactions in chat. And also thanks for listening, in retrospect, in podcast. All of your views, all of your hits, all of your likes, all of your follows, all of your subscriptions, I greatly appreciate. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.